Hey guys, my name is Matsumiyo, and welcome to an episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. Let's get the formalities out of the way real quick. If you'd like to submit your own question that can be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question really comes from Travis, and it is, why not buff Warden? What do you think about Warden dropping 4 extra pairs of Glance Smart Glasses at the start of each round? So I think it's clear that Warden needs an upgrade. Even after the most recent changes to Ying where her pick rate skyrocketed, I assumed he was gonna follow suit, but that just didn't really seem to be the case. Even when people were constantly playing Ying, no one was really switching on over to Warden to counter it. They would just rather play as something like Jaeger or Wamai, who just simply feels more reliable half the time. And so one suggestion that a lot of people have recommended is what you talked about, is literally just putting down some sort of an object like Rook does at the very beginning, where everyone can come on over, pick up some glasses, and now they become immune to flashes. And that would definitely be incredible, but I don't know if this is the solution that we're looking for. Now, I will give it to you that one great aspect about a change like this is that it would make him less situational, and I feel like that is one of his biggest weaknesses right now. I'm sure if you ever played as him, you know that like 99% of the time, no one throws in a flash or puts down a smoke screen, and so you just never use his gadget. And so the only thing that you're bringing to your team is basically a mediocre weapon, and so it shouldn't be anyone's surprise why people will gravitate on over to someone like Jaeger or Romai, because they're just significantly more reliable. Even when their gadgets aren't activating, at least they have something to fall back on that actually will get the job done. And so by allowing him to effectively pass out some sunglasses, that is just going to mean there's going to be more situations where his gadget has an impact. His teammates are going to feel the effects more often. And so I like that aspect about it. Now, the reason why I said earlier that I'm not really sold on this idea, though, is that you would effectively be making flashes and Ying in particular worthless. There is a difference between countering an operator and then countering them into oblivion. If literally everyone on defense is now effectively immune to flashes, what does Ying provide for her team? I mean, maybe you could argue that being able to throw down a smoke screen because she now has that ability, like that's going to at least be somewhat beneficial. But if literally no one is going to be able to get flashed by her now, you could basically just delete her from the game, which I know that some people would probably be in favor of, but I don't really know if that is the best direction, at least balance-wise. There at least needs to be some wiggle room, even when you are being countered by a particular operator. There needs to be some way to be able to work around it, but if everyone has this flat bonus, I feel like that is pushing things too far. Now, one way they could work around this is by making them a one-time use. If you get flashed, it will protect you from that, but then the glasses will break and you're gonna have to fend for yourself. And that, honestly, may not all be that bad. But as soon as you do that, we kind of run into the same problem that we just talked about, where it does become too situational once again. Usually, people are gonna be throwing in 3 flashes before they rush, or if you're going against a Ying, this is now going to be completely worthless because she has like what, 6 flashes in each Candela, and so it's not going to provide any protection whatsoever, and so we're kind of back to square one. What I honestly think needs to be done is that they just simply need to give him a better weapon. I understand that Ubisoft was very reluctant and hesitant to make sure that he did not become overpowered. Back in the day, Glaz was one of the strongest operators in the game because he had the ability to peer through smoke screens, and it was clear that they didn't want that to happen on the defensive side. That's why when he was first introduced, he was 3 armor. That's why you had to stop and stand still for a significant amount of time before you could actually peer through that smoke screen. But as we all know, it didn't actually turn out that way, and he's continued to stay and is still one of the weaker operators in the game. And so I think what they just need to do is just give him a better weapon. It's the reason why people use specific operators in this game. Like, yes, the gadget means a lot, but if you don't have a weapon to back it up, people are going to avoid it, and I think that really kind of gets to the heart of Warden. And so in general, while I think your idea is really creative, and who knows, maybe that's exactly what he needs to be more viable, I think when we really get down to it, he just needs to have something that's more reliable and something that he can fall back on when his gadget isn't in use, which, if we're being honest with ourselves, is a majority of the time. The next question comes from Joshua, and it is, I would like to see the new limited time event destruction mechanics implemented into normal multiplayer. Thoughts? So as much as I'm loving the limited time event right now, I think it's become clear why Ubisoft a long time ago made the decision to lessen the amount of destructibility in this game and not allow players to effectively just open up every single floor, because it basically would just ruin the experience. Yes, it's really cool in the limited time mode, but I just don't think it would actually work on the vast majority of the maps. You would effectively be able, not only on offense and defense, to come up with some of the most ridiculous strategies that could honestly make some objectives nearly impossible to defend or to go against. One strategy that I've already seen people employ is to effectively open up every single one of the access routes, meaning that if offense wants to jump through that window or just simply walk down a hallway, they're gonna have to find another way in because there's literally nothing in front of them. The hallway is gone. The doorway access is now gone. There's no way for them to physically get inside of the building. And so imagine what a defensive team could do with 45 seconds at their disposal before offense can really even do anything about it. It would just make some objectives impossible. You could also argue that if offense was actually able to get inside, then they would be able to just open up so many different holes, jump onto said objective room, and now these other objectives are going to be really hard to defend. Like, it would be, you know, a double-edged sword in some cases, but I think by and large, it would just ruin the map balance overall and would just cause a host of different issues. And so while maybe if Ubisoft ever does decide to bring in a new map into Siege, or if they rework an old map, certain sections of it could have these kinds of dynamics to spice it up a bit, I just don't think that it's necessary. And honestly, what we just kind of described are hatches. That's why hatches were made in the first place. They wanted to have the verticality, but they didn't want to make it so that it would just completely ruin the map balance. The next question comes from Jeffrey, and it is, you think that the Call of Duty 2019 is a bit too big? Like, it hit 200 gigabytes as a console user. If you don't have a pro or an external hard drive, that's like one game you have. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. I don't understand why they have to have such a large file size. For someone on PC, it's not as big of a deal because for PC, it's really easy to just get larger hard drive spaces, and things have kind of expanded upon that for a while now, so it isn't that large of a problem. But for someone on console, if you don't have an external hard drive, you're pretty much out of luck. And so without question, I think that Infinity Ward needs to address this. Now, I understand that their game is going to be quite large because if you look at it, it is just an expansive game. They have a lot of unique assets. You have the single player, you've got the multiplayer, you've got co-op, you've got the battle royale, and that's just gonna take up a lot of space. And if you really kind of walk around, they've got a lot going on these maps. Like, there is a ton of content here, and that is probably contributing to this large file size. But is it 200 gigs large? That's where it's kind of hard to believe. And so I feel like they either need to compress their files more so they just simply don't take up as much space, or just simply allow their player base to choose which part of the game they want to download. Do they want to have the single player always available to enjoy at any given moment? Well, then allow them to do that. Or if they're never going to play the single player or co-op or multiplayer ever again, all they care about is battle royale, well, then just simply have them download those files and only those. I feel like that would go a long way. Even if it was just simply eliminating the single player from the game, that would probably clear up a significant amount of space, which would alleviate a lot of these problems. And so yeah, I do think that something needs to be done. Hopefully this isn't going to be an issue with the next console generation, because admittedly, we are nearing the end of the current one. Games are gonna get bigger and bigger, and they're probably limited by those file sizes right now. They don't want to get too large, and it seems like Call of Duty just kind of bypassing that. They're like, no, we're already pushing things to that next generation without actually getting there. And so I'm crossing my fingers that this isn't gonna be a large problem for those consoles, but we are gonna have to wait and see. The next one comes from Victor, and it is, do you think that some recent operators like Cade can make some casual map objectives viable? I mean, a lot of casual maps have been removed before Cade, Maestro, Clash, Goyo release. Yeah, I think without a doubt there are some objectives on casual maps that have become more viable and could even be somewhat competitive if they were put into a ranked environment. But you also have to remember that many of these maps that are in those casual rotations just have fundamental flaws with them. Just because one objective is now more viable doesn't necessarily mean the entire map doesn't just have any of those issues anymore. Skyscraper is a great example. You could argue that the first level is now easier to defend, at least to some extent, because of the introduction of Cade. You can electrify those hatches, but that doesn't take away from the fact that basically the entire outside of the map is one giant balcony, and both offense and defense can hop in and out whenever they want, and it just results in some of the most annoying and frustrating gameplay. And so yeah, things are a bit better in some cases, but really just the fundamental flaws of these maps are still present. And so all in all, while I do understand where you're coming from, the game is constantly changing and evolving, and when new operators are added on in, that mixes things up, but I don't think that they have that large of an impact on the game that fundamentally fixes the flaws of these maps. But yeah, guys, that is what it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you think that Warden needs an upgrade? I'm sure you do. If so, how do you think Ubisoft should go about it? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.